All right, good afternoon, everyone. It is January 13th, and we're excited to be sitting here with James Peluso. He is one of the incredible leaders at MRM who has been a partner with Creative Spirit for the last few years, I believe, and has been an incredible ally, advocate, and supporter. And we're really excited to just sit down, have kind of like a fireside chat with James on both MRM's perspective on diversity employment and also just his personal experiences with managing a team with disabilities and a diverse range of perspectives. So really excited to have you here. And I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Malcolm Repburn, who's going to deliver a few of the first remarks. Malcolm, over to you.
So I know you're somebody who's been really involved in the higher different movement and inclusion and diversity for people with IDDs and for disabilities. So usually you start out the interview by asking if you could finish the sentence, why I care is like in relation to why, you care about disability advocacy and getting involved with Creative Spirit.
Sure. First and foremost, why I care is that it's rewarding, and rewarding on so many levels, right? So we could look at, why it's rewarding for the business and the net impact it has on incorporating even more diversity into our work. And we know that there's a real business case for the value in that. It's rewarding, of course, for those who get the opportunity to gain more independence through employment. Those with IDDs especially have so much to offer, and to see what a game-changing, life-changing impact employment can have for those folks is just amazing. And I've seen firsthand how rewarding it is for their friends and family, those who have come back to me with incredible feedback about how much of a positive impact just something as simple as employment has provided to them, that it's just rewarding and wonderful to be able to be a part of it. And so that really feeds into why I care so much, because it definitely impacts it definitely is rewarding on so many levels from that perspective.
Yeah, and I mean, I know that disability inclusion is something really big for MRM and diversity. So handling human resources and stuff at MRM, like, how have you gone about implementing ways to improve employment for people with IDDs, and how do you think that can be used as a model for other organizations to follow and to change things?
So look, I would say at MRM, we've really begun to embrace how critical it is to foster an environment that's one that's inclusive for those with IDDs. And I think where we are now is there's been a lot of attention, and rightfully so, on gender and racial equality. And at MRM, we are bringing into focus equality for those with disabilities, employment equality. And so we've embraced that in many ways. I think that it really comes down to looking at your approach and how you can differently approach trying to find and attract and retain talent from all areas. And so for us, we've taken some tactical approaches in how we could bring that to reality, from altering our hiring approach to make it more inclusive and comfortable, and really making sure that our candidate experience is differentiated where it needs to be. And so that then really starts playing into our ability to, find kind of that untapped talent, and really making sure that they're set up for success early on.
Yeah. I mean, unconscious bias is a really big problem with a lot of employers, and they don't know how to approach people with IDs and disabilities, and they have all these concerns about, there's a lot of misconceptions about accommodations being too expensive, about people with IDs won't be productive enough, or they won't. So what do you think we can do to really change people's minds and their perceptions what do you say to other organizations to really try to get them to change their attitude?
Yeah, that's a great question. Look, I think that, you mentioned something which is just a reality of all organizations, right? Where, cost is calculated and thought of, we're a bottom line driven place. I think it's just so easy these days to be able to deliver what that business case is to, our executive team, so that they understand that though there may be upfront costs, so to speak, in ensuring accessibility and doing the things you need to do to create the right environment for those with disability in the workplace. There are studies and real data to support that. Look, it makes absolute business sense to still focus, and the real outcome is in being able to improve upon our workforce, and through diverse viewpoints and diversity in thought, diversity in background and experiences and abilities is really what helps us to continue to deliver the best work for our clients. So it's really just a no-brainer, and I think most see that now, and I really think we've come such a long way.
Yeah. I mean, do you think with COVID happening, it will kind of make people more appreciative of diversity and how important it is to have diversity of thought? Because in order for things to change, you need a lot of different voices. So maybe now that we have, now that we're in this situation, do you think other organizations will try to actually change permanently, or do you think it's just going to be still be the status quo?
So I think that what COVID has done has, I think there's real silver linings to the experiences that we're all going through in organizations during COVID. And it's opened up the aperture to really say, look, we don't have to necessarily have the traditional office environment that we've become accustomed to, kind of coming into the office daily, really, working in that traditional kind of 9 to 5 sense. We've shown that over the last year, we can work remote and still deliver amazing work. And I think it helps. One of the silver linings is that it really helps kind of tell the story that with the right digital accessibility, if anything, it increases and enhances our ability to think differently about who we're hiring and how we're going about doing that. And I can't see organizations kind of turning back the clock. I think it's here to stay, and it helps our cause in terms of being able to look to the IDD community, for example, and really embrace kind of the impact that they can have. I think it actually, in many ways, removes barriers.
Yeah. So you think the employment crisis for people with IDDs things can actually change for the better, I guess, because of COVID in a way? Because
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think I'll turn the questions over to Joanna because
understood.
Yeah.
Great. It was really a pleasure talking with you.
Yeah, you too.
That's awesome. Thank you, Malcolm. So I just wanted to quickly bring us back to some more specifics. James, I think you gave some really great anecdotes about the general marketplace, what's been going on with COVID, and I think you also gave some broader strokes on what MRM has in terms of beliefs around hiring different, and talk a little bit more about the personal experiences you've had with the hiring process with Creative Spirit, because I think you guys have a really fascinating journey. And I would love to just hear about how it started, how it's going, where you want to see improvements, not only just at MRM, but what you've learned along the way, because I think that's really valuable in terms of this inclusion model that you guys have been interpreting. And I think that's a really fascinating story. So I'd just love to get your perspective on the journey that you guys have been on at MRM. And I think just in the specifics, what you guys did concretely to, for example, Chris Smith was a great story. And I think just building on that, what did you learn from that hiring process, and what have you changed specifically within the hiring process to accommodate or just make adjustments, and what has that process been like from an outside perspective looking in?
Sure. No, that's a great question. So look, I think going back to the earlier part of your question, it was a little bit over 3 years ago that I became connected with Laurel and Terry. And, look, as a human resources professional, we're constantly looking for untapped talent. That's just a reality. But it wasn't really until I became engaged with Creative Spirit and Laurel and Terry that I truly got educated just on how significant the employment gap is with those with IDDs, and B, really just how amazing of a source of talent that group is. And it's impossible not to be moved to action when you see firsthand the successes of unlocking that talent with the right support. So initially, that connection was business case focused on how could I look for and continue to provide my business leaders with unique talent solutions. But as time went on, and as we partnered closer with Creative Spirit, you're right. I think that we then start honing in on the solutions that really make an impact for us. And it's individualized. I think it has to be customized for the organization and for their need. And for me, it really started with education, and Creative Spirit was great in helping our leaders understand the significance of the opportunity that the IDD community is really as a true talent solution. So like there's that first piece, but also really the education and guidance around how we could look at some tactical solutions, like looking at positions a little bit differently to ensure that the likelihood of success is maximized. From a recruitment and selection standpoint, how we can truly adapt our processes to ensure we're really getting a true read on the potential fit for a role. And like I said, it's not a one size fits all approach, but it was kind of through that lens that we were able to have a interview process with Chris Smith, for example, that he felt comfortable with what he was stepping into, and that the hiring managers who were going to be talking with him also felt comfortable and were also educated and had that initial primer so that they knew what they were getting into. And really, it's being able to kind of do things differently than you would in the traditional sense that enabled us to kind of be able to break down those barriers and really have an engaging process that worked and allowed us to assess if truly we would have the right position for that person that we were talking with, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's wonderful. Was it a culture that allowed you to have that comfort to take a risk? Was it the industry, or was it just you yourself? And I ask that because, or your leadership. I mean, where did it come from? Where was that spark? And how does this open the doors for other people? And really, what are the next steps for you guys to make this more best practice?
Sure. There's a lot to unpack there. So if I miss anything, just let me know. Look, I think when going back to the beginning of your question, I think it's a combination of the culture that I see at MRM, which is one that I really mean this. They truly embrace, and embrace might not even be the right word. They truly seek diverse representation, inclusion, and equity. And it really starts with how clearly, over and over again, it showed in our work, and how diversity has truly impacted the work that we're able to deliver, period. And so I think it's a combination of a culture that is, and an industry that is trying to have that competitive edge so that they could deliver unique and exciting work for their clients, but also where somebody like myself, who has grown into a true passion for making a dent in this space, I happen to be lucky enough to be in an environment at MRM where our leaders allow me to, really push for what I believe to be right, and it's embraced. And so I think it's a combination of having leadership that's super supportive, having constant reminders that diversity, that diverse viewpoints, and diverse thought in how we deliver work continues to produce amazing content. And I think it is personally something that I'm driven to continue working on and pushing the envelope in this area. So I think it's a combo of all three.
I love that. What cultural references are you looking at that may be signaling now is a great time to start pushing forward?
Mm-hmm. Look, I think when you talk about 75 years of National Disability Employment Month, 30 years since ADA, and kind of where we are now, really what I think is that I think that intentional and deliberate action is more acceptable and expected than ever before. And kind of that's what these anniversaries signify to me. We've seen it clearly with the tangible actions taken by organizations, I think, to affect change with gender, with race representation, inclusivity, and equity, those things. But to me, these anniversaries signify that it's truly time to carry this mindset forward, even more so than we ever have with those with disabilities.
From the other perspective of employees and individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, the neurodiverse, and how they've been excluded and sort of left out of this employment conversation. So I'm curious what you think when it comes to inclusion within corporations and organizations. Why do you think that's the case?
That's a great question. So historically, that may be the case. People with intellectual and developmental disabilities may have been left out of the conversation. There is no doubt that a primary focus has been, and rightfully so, on needs for gender and race equality, and many organizations have focused there. But, I choose to look forward. I could tell you that MRM, for example, and the larger network that we're part of is truly committed to progress in this area. And honestly, I want to toss it back to you because for me, it's organizations like Creative Spirit and the outreach and education that they're doing that have really given this issue the legs it needs to become a priority. And I've seen that within my life in MRM. And as I talk to Laurel and Terry and other partner organizations who engage with Creative Spirit, I've really seen that there as well in other organizations, that the IDD conversation has kind of taken an equal priority to some of the other areas to which there's been historically employment inequality.
So I think we're kind of coming to a final sort of thought process here, which is really more focused on MRM and what is the definition of higher difference for MRM.
That's a great question. Look, I think when you say, or when one says higher different, we immediately envision the outcome of that statement. Having teams that are diverse in background, thought, experiences, ability, and with that representation, truly getting to the heart of what we at MRM and other organizations want to achieve as it relates to the impact it has to our work, right? It's an outcome. But when I really think about you saying higher different, I think I like to look at this statement more in adverb form, if that makes sense, which is to say, to achieve what, I stated, you need to figure out how your approach can be adapted or done differently, really, to really get at the best and really get at the best ways to connect to and attract talent from all walks of life and ensure that there is a positive, customized candidate experience for all. And so it's really in the action of that statement that I see the power, which is how are we going out and doing things differently to achieve an outcome of true representation. And that's where I think MRM is doing such a great job, is that we're constantly evaluating how we're looking for talent, what our selection processes are, what that candidate experience is like. And in that constant evaluation, I think we're continuing to grow as an organization and hone in on really becoming a place that truly is a inclusive environment that is sensed from that immediate candidate experience throughout the employment experience. And that's where I see a lot of the focus. And I think it's super powerful. And I hope other organizations are kind of looking at it through that lens as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really great that you're not only taking advantage of lessons learned through exploration, which it sounds like MRM did a lot of that, but also just being responsive to needs and listening. And I think those are two key factors that we promote at Creative Spirit. But it's great to hear that it's being reciprocated, because I think that that is a huge, powerful step to expanding what we believe is the norm and the status quo with hiring. A lot of what we were talking about, what Menachem touched on earlier, is breaking down these predetermined barriers. Exactly what you said. The end is already predicted from the moment the candidate comes into the room to shake the hand and go through the process. And I think what's great from what I've heard from MRM, I think it's a great model that you guys are able to sort of take it case by case, and you're still evolving the conversation. So I think that's
right.
wonderful.
Great. I do want to thank you so much for just this opportunity to be able to kind of share my story and do the best job I can in sharing MRM's story as well. Because I will tell you, and maybe this is expanding on one of the questions, which is that it truly is a priority of MRM to have an environment that is conducive for everybody to be included and to truly enjoy the work. And our goal is to have individuals look forward to coming into the office, look forward to being part of MRM. And we understand that a different formula for different people. And we're cool with that. And we're trying to make sure that as best as we can, we are accommodating to all. And it's so much ingrained in our daily lives. I just am lucky to be part of an organization that kind of has that philosophy.
I think that was a great piece of information. And so thank you guys for being part of it.
Thank you so much. That means a lot. And I really value the partnership personally and professionally. So back at you.
Awesome.